So this is our April virtual chat for Cultural Resources Office. And we're going to go over, I'm going to go over a couple of just quick ground rules that I know everybody's heard this a million times. Please mute your speakers unless you want to talk. Cameras are good on or off. If you speak, it'd be great if you had your camera on so we could see you, but that's your choice. And then I would like to also mention that, if you want to raise your hand, your virtual hand, or, chat, please feel free to do that. I will try to keep track of what we're getting in so we don't lose that. And because we really, we want as much participation as we can. And so we have, we put a survey a couple months ago to kind of get folks' feelings about the virtual chats, what you want to see, how you want to see it. And we got a lot of good feedback, and we appreciate everybody who contributed and took the time to fill out the survey. One thing that we did get from that, one specific thing, was that is to try to keep these moving quicker and keep them a little bit shorter than they have been. So we'll try to, with that in mind, we're gonna keep moving quick today, but we want you to talk or participate as much as you want, and that's what we really want. So if we need to stay past the hour, we'll do that. If you want to stay on and talk or have questions, and we always welcome that. And so with that, I am going to hand it off to Mary Kennedy, who is going to talk about our Historic Bridge database.
Thanks, Patrick. Hi, everybody. We're excited today to go over our Historic Bridge database. Before I do that, I was just going to launch a couple of polls to see who's on today to kind of get a sense of who's listening and how you might be using the database. So I'm going to hit launch here, and hopefully the poll is going to show up on your screen to tell us your affiliation, if you're with a government as official or staff, or if you're a consultant, to specify what kind of field of consulting you're in, environmental engineering or cultural resources. I know we have a couple consulting parties on, and then, or if none of those fit, just hit the other. All right. All right, is it showing up for everybody else on the screen? Okay, good. All right, so it looks like we got a lot of government people on here today and a lot of consultants, and that's great. Merely environmental and cultural resource consultants. Okay. Question number 2 is whether or not you have signed up for the new application. And it looks like a lot of people here today have not yet. About 30% of you on here have. Okay. So those of you who have gone ahead and gotten the application, have you used it yet? Have you tried to go in and look at any information about any of our bridges yet? Okay, so not too many people diving in there yet. So I guess that's good because hopefully it won't be boring today. Going over the info, it'll be new to you. So before I launch into looking at the application and running through kind of some of its features, I just wanted to put out there what it is and what it is not. So this database originally started out as an access database that our consultant who conducted the historic bridge inventory created to help them compile data and analyze data as they were surveying bridges for the historic bridge inventory. So they started out with about 18,000 records and then, did analysis and filters and whatnot on them to determine which bridges were historic and which were not. So it's very detailed information in that analysis, breaking down the point system, how things were analyzed to determine if they were historic bridges or not. And then for the historic ones, depending on the different filters and point systems, to determine what was select and non-select. So it's a very technical, detailed information in that regard. It's not the place where you go to find pretty pictures of the bridges or historic photos of the bridges over time, interactive maps to tell you how to get to the bridges if you want to go look at them. We do have sites out there like that, Bridge Hunter and historicbridges.org, for example, in the SHARD database that our SHPO has historic bridge information, and it's not those things. It's also not where you go to find the most up-to-date information on the condition of the bridges, condition ratings, things like that. That inspection information is still going to be in our inspection application system called BIAS in those inspection reports, and that's where you're going to go to get that. Now, this is going to have some overlapping data from some of those sources, but it is primarily the very technical information of how the bridges were determined historic or not. This isn't to say we might have future upgrades, new phases of it later where we add in some of those other features. But our first goal was just to take all those records, that massive amount of information we had in an access format that we didn't really know the future of, and put it into a better database format and build a web-based platform to have an interface that was easier for other people to use. So probably consultant community is who's going to use it the most in planning for projects, in the district staff, maybe an INDOT, other INDOT staff, and planning projects, analyzing that information when you're specifically working on a historic bridge project. So I just wanted to put that out there of kind of what it is, where it came from, set proper expectations of what you're going to find in there. And to say that we do kind of have a list of potential upgrades in the future that we might explore. But right now, it's that technical information from our historic bridge inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. I'll turn off my camera and save a little bandwidth here to just run through database and what it is, what it looks like, and some of the things that we can do with it. So are we seeing my screen with iTab?
We're seeing the teams.
Oh, okay. I thought I said share the other screen. Hang on. Sorry about that. I think it's confusing my two monitors. Yep, it had them reversed. Okay, so hopefully now you're seeing iTab.
Yep, we got it.
Okay, cool. So this database, you have to go through our iTab system to get access to it. And this is kind of exciting. It's our first application on iTab where non-business users can use it. So like for our consulting parties, our bridge advocacy groups and the like can sign up for it without being registered as a business by creating an Access Indiana account. So that's exciting. It's the first one that we've been able to set up like that. So you probably may see less because you're not an INDOT employee, but you're going to scroll down until you find the historic bridge application, hit the launch button. You'll get our disclaimer. We have lots of disclaimers for anytime we're putting data out there, legal info and all that. You can click through that. So on this main page, one thing I wanted to point out up in the top of the screen, if you click the help button with the question mark, that brings up a user manual for the database. And you can look at that on the web, or you could download it and save a copy. It's going to tell you when it's been updated, but it has lots of screenshots to kind of walk you through a lot of the stuff we're going to do today, and then other things as well. So I wanted to point out where you can find that user manual and download it. So at the top of our dashboard, we have a lot of different ways that we can search for a bridge by different identifying numbers. A lot of you probably are going to have you're going to be wanting to look at a specific bridge and see specific information on one bridge. And a really easy way to get to it is with the MBI number. Today, I'm going to use Allen County Bridge 32 for a lot of my examples. And so this is the MBI number for it. The search button is going to help you give you some, hey, are you looking for this? You can type it in, hit enter, or press search. You can click on it, hit enter, or press search, and then it will come down here in your search results. For county bridge number, you could go about it that way too. Hey, I'm looking for Allen 32. I'm going to type in 32. One thing to note for county bridge number is it has to be 5 digits. So a lot of them are going to have some amount of lead zeros, and it's going to help you with that and say, hey, you want county bridge 32, but you need some lead zeros. If you hit search, we can see we have 58 bridges. 58 counties have a bridge 32. You could sort them and say, oh, here's Allen County. Another way you could do that is all of these boxes in the middle that are gray pop out with different other search criteria. So you can click Allen County and hit enter combined with that 32 up there, and you're going to get it down here in the search results. Another way you might be coming to this database with information is with the Indiana Historic Sites and Structures Inventory survey number from SHARD, from the SHPO database, or a historic bridge number from the SHPO information. So here's their map, which is a great interactive map where you can say you're doing a red flag. Hey, my project's in this area. I see these surveyed sites. I'm going to click on this one and see that, oh, it's called the Van Zyl Bridge and it has this survey number. You can copy and paste and bring that survey number in and search for it that way. Whoops. And it's going to pull up that number for you. And you see the bridge down here. Another other parameter I wanted to point out is also you can do it locationally by different bits of information, such as the road name. So this is saying it's the Van Zyl Bridge, doesn't give you a bridge number on that record there, but we see it's on Van Zyl Road, so we could search that way as well. Under the very first tab here, we put in Van Zyl and do a, we select that's the facility that's being carried and hit search, and there's the information there. One thing I do want to point out for the IHSSI number and the HB number is that we're going to have those more completely, more thoroughly for the historic bridges, for the 800 or so bridges that were determined to be historic. There were lots of bridges that did get surveyed in one or both of those, probably more the IHSSI, that turned out not to be historic. We may not have those matching numbers in there yet. We wanted to focus on the historic ones first and matching up that data, and then we'll get the other info in there. If you're doing a red flag and you come across a bridge that has an IHSSI number, but we don't have it in this database, just give it to me, send me an email. I'll happily add that, make that edit so that we can connect up that information. It's always kind of a work in progress. You know, as things shift and change, we're always want to put that info in there. Just let me know and we'll get that updated. So that's kind of just looking at those top identifying number ways you can search. Down here in the middle, we have lots of other different categories we can search by, looking at the county, the districts. This might be more for INDOT staff, you know, if you're in one of the districts and you want to do a search of how many bridges are in your district. We can search by bridge type. So Allen 32 happens to be a metal truss. So we could say, hey, I wonder how many metal through trusses are in Allen County. We click those two parameters and hit enter, and we see that we have 5 of them. We can also search by subtype if you're wanting to look for specific types of bridges. And we could say, well, how many of those through trusses in Allen County are a Pratt truss, for example? Hit that parameter, press enter again, and we see only 1 of them is a Pratt truss. You could also narrow things down by date. If you were happen to look for all the bridges built in 1800s in a county, you can put in whatever date parameters you want and do a search that way. You can also search by connection type. and by the status of the bridge. Say maybe you have a client that says, we want to reuse the historic bridge on a trail. How many of them are out there? One way you might be able to look for that information is say, let's see what bridges are in storage. We have 9 bridges here in storage. Click on those to get more information about those bridges. National Register eligibility is another parameter you can search under. So say we wanted to figure out what are all the bridges in Allen County that are listed on the National Register or eligible for listing. We would come through and click all of those boxes that are applicable, one way or another that it was determined eligible or it's listed. Go up for the county and select Allen County. And we can see that we have 17 in this database that are considered historic in Allen County. If we wanted to further sort that and say how many of those bridges are select, we could go under the historical information and select that criteria. And we can see we have 12 of them. So in your search results here, you can see that you can sort them and you can filter them to organize them different ways. But we also have an export feature to put it into an Excel document. If you're an Excel junkie, if that's how you like to sort your information and analyze things, then we have that option for you as well. So to demo that, we're going to just take a look. We're going to start off and say, how many bridges in this database are in Allen County? I see we have 536. And what if we take that into an Excel document and then do some sorts and filtering that way? So we can see there's all different fields in here that you might want to look for information and sort for information. But if we go over to the National Register eligibility one and we put a filter on it to look at what are all the ways that they're historic, that filter on, we see down here 17 records. So that's good. It matches what we had for our other search results. Over here's the select non-select fields. Do a filter on that. And before we had looked for how many bridges were select in Allen County. Apply that filter, we see it's 12 again. Okay, good, it's matching up. So it's getting you the same information, just different ways. If you want to export it and do other things in Excel, then we have that option for you as well. Another way I wanted to just briefly highlight, you can search for a bridge is by the bridge name. So I saw a news release within the past month about a historic bridge that had been closed in Park County and had some issues. And I thought, okay, I wonder if that's a bridge that's in our database that I should be aware of what's happening with it. And it was called the Melcher Bridge. It didn't have a bridge number. It didn't say what road it was on. So I can come in here, put that name in there. All right, I see it's Park 191. So that's kind of a nice feature because lots of times historic bridges are referred to by their historic bridge name, the common name that the locals use for it. If there is a bridge that has a historic bridge name, common name that we don't have it matched up in here, again, just send me an email, let me know what it is, and I'll be happy to add that information in to give more options here. So now I'm going to go into the individual records and take a look at some of the detailed information. We'll go back to Allen County 32. When you're wanting to look at the individual information, you come down here into the search results and click on the little slider tool over on the left, and you will only see the view bridge option. You click on that and it pulls up in a new tab. New information here. We can see all the identifying information is up at the top. We have several tabs up here that you can navigate through to look at the detailed information. So the first page it's going to be on is the structural information. This is a lot of the basic identifying information about the bridge, when it was built, where it's located, what type it is, some basic dimensions of it. Although we don't have any clicking and taking you interactively to a map, we do have the UTM coordinates here, which are easy to plug into Google Earth, for example, and then you can go see the bridge very quickly that way. One thing I wanted to take a look at is the status information. So down at the bottom, you're going to have the status, and for the current status, that is most complete and most thorough for the historic bridges. Every year, per our historic bridge programmatic agreement, INDOT has to report to Federal Highway and the Historic Bridge Task Group what changes have occurred in the bridge population, what has been happening, what projects we've had. And so as part of that effort every year, I'm checking in on those bridges quite a bit, making notes in here, when things happen. And so that's what I'm focusing on. And so for those 800 or so bridges in the database that are historic, that's where you're going to have the most complete current status information. If there's nothing here where nothing in the current status, it's just blank, it's presumed that bridge is still there. It's still operating, still in vehicular use. But you would always go to bias, the inspection reports and whatnot to find the most up-to-date information on it. We do have an in-bias indicator down here that's a yes/no question. And so this is this bridge that we recorded and inventoried, 15 or so years ago in this database, is it still existing? Is it still out there being inspected? Are those inspection records still in the active part of bias, not archived in the active area, where we're still actively inspecting this bridge? It's still out there. If so, that's a yes. If it's a no, then it might have been replaced, and we're going to have the replacement bridge information over here. For some of them, some of the historic bridges, maybe they were closed. They've been closed for a few years. They drop off the inspections. They're not in bias anymore, or they get bypassed, things like that. So sometimes in that case, if there's a note here, we're going to have a current status note that might say, it was closed 10 years ago and it's not being inspected anymore, something like that. Just wanted to point out some of the info there that you'll find in status. So the next tab is historical information. And the first box in here is any information that we received as part of our public involvement efforts. When we did the inventory, we tried to reach out to locals and just the general public about historic bridges. And if we got feedback on a bridge, then this is where that's going to be plugged in. So we can see for this bridge, the Arch, which is a regional historic preservation group based out of Allen County, but doing surrounding counties, told us that this bridge was on their list. They considered it historic, so we plug that information in there. The middle section here is going to have historic bridge name or names, if we know that. And again, if this is blank, but there's a historic name associated with the bridge, just let me know and we'll plug it in there. If we know the engineer, designer, or builder, we're going to have it in the center section here. The bottom part is where we're going to have narrative information. Sometimes there's a couple sentences here, sometimes there's a couple paragraphs, just depending on what information is out there. This comes from a variety of sources. So some of it comes from the SHPO database, the SHPO records. When the consultant was compiling the info, they would take whatever was in shard and the SHPO records, put it in here. Also from Dr. Jim Cooper's records and information. The consultant contracted with him as part of the inventory to get his information, incorporate it into their database and use it in their analysis. So that might be in here. If they went and did local research as part of the historic bridge inventory, it's going to be recorded in here. So a variety of ways or pieces of information could be in here in a narrative format. The next tab is the National Register Evaluation tab. So this is where we have the breakdown of the point system to tell you why a bridge is historic or is not historic. And we do have the documents out there as part of the inventory to explain all the rationale and thoughts and everything behind this. When you go to our Historic Bridges Inventory Summary and Results page, the Volume 1 National Register Eligibility Results document is one you can download that will explain to you all the criteria and methodology that was used in analyzing the bridges, and will tell you about these point breakdowns. So we can see here for this bridge under Criterion C, it received quite a few points in different areas for significance. If we go to Volume 1, in the back of Volume 1, there are a lot of tables, and they are broken down by bridge type. which explain how by bridge type points were assigned for different areas of significance. So for Allen 32, one of the places it said it got points was built before a specified year. So we can see for metal trusses, any of those types of them, if they were built before 1900, they got 7 points for significance. And so we see here, there's that 7 points matches up. There's always going to be a rationale down here to indicate that, but so this doesn't say, it doesn't indicate it's the before 1900. To get that information, you go back to volume 1 to that document, and it's broken down by bridge type. So National Register eligibility is twofold. The bridge has to have significance, but it also has to have integrity. It still has to show its workmanship and be indicative of its era and have those historic qualities still about it. So they would have a total up here for how many points for significance, and then in this assessment of integrity section, there might be deductions for the bridge. If it has some material integrity issues, it would have points deducted. For this one, it's pretty intact, unaltered, so it didn't have any deductions. But we'll just flip over and look at one that did have some point deductions. So here's an example where it had 16 points for areas of significance. We can see there's a note here that it was widened at some point, so that led to -3 points. Totaling those two up, 16 minus 3, then it ended up with 13 points. It's all in the methodology documents, but basically if it had 1 point or more, it was considered eligible. And then when the ones eligible or not, you're going to have summary statements down here. So this bridge was not eligible under A. It was eligible under C. So we see summary statements to show us the 3 different areas under C that is considered significant. There's always going to be the statement down here at the bottom to sum it up. Yep, this is eligible. If the bridge is listed in a historic district, and that's what's listed over here by determination, then we're going to have a historic district name also come over here with it. If you find that that's missing on a bridge, again, let me know. We tried to match those up, but some of the older nominations weren't real great about articulating individual bridges and whatnot. So if we're missing anything, just let me know and we'll get the info in there. So the next tab after that is select and non-select information. So for all the historic bridges, they're going to have info here on whether they were select or non-select. One of the key things to look at is the selection matrix box. And from our summary results page in volume 3 of our inventory documents, we have all the methodology of how bridges were determined select or non-select. And we see here's the matrix of how we determine those things. If you need that other information, you could go to volume 3. So in this case, it was programmatically determined to be select because it fell into one of the boxes in the matrix that just moved it on through. We do have bridges that underwent an individual evaluation. Those were primarily in box 3 of that matrix. We will take a look at one of those here quickly just to see what that looks like. So here's one where it's saying was in box 3. We have this clicked here that an individual review applied. So then that's when this next tab, the individual review form, is going to come into play. Get very detailed, very technical of the points. If it's yes, you get these points. If it's no, you get these, kind of a flow chart thing that goes through. This is all explained in detail in volume 3 to give you the breakdown and all that information. In this particular case, the bridge was looked at in particular for non-vehicular use. So then this additional flow chart down here is going to be filled out and populated. And we can see, okay, it came to the determination of select, non-vehicular use. An additional tab up here that comes into play when you have non-vehicular use bridge is the assessment of pedestrian load capacity. So that tab will be over here giving that info. Again, it's in volume 3 that explains that a little bit more. So these are the main tabs of information that you can go through just to take a look at all the detailed analysis that was done for the bridges. One thing I wanted to highlight is when a bridge was not evaluated, how you can see that indicator. Okay, so here's a bridge that was not evaluated in the inventory. And so on that first structural information tab, it's going to be up here in red, kind of highlighting to you, okay, this wasn't included. We didn't look at it. If there's something in here, it's in red, then we know that bridge wasn't included in the inventory. In the user manual, it does outline the various reasons that we might not have included it. And also in our different methodology documents on our summary and results page, we're going to talk about that as well. But here's the main reasons why it wouldn't be included. We didn't include border bridges, privately or railroad-owned bridges, bridges on the interstate system. And then we had a cutoff date of 1965. So if it was built after 1965, it was not evaluated. And you're going to see those various reasons listed on that tab. So one scenario I wanted to go over because it has been a common question over the years is when you have a bridge and you're looking at the information, say you pull up the inspection and bias and it says this bridge was built before 1965, but it wasn't included in the inventory and you don't have any information of it being evaluated in inventory. And why is that? And this example here on the screen is one of those. So we can see the year built date says 1936, but up here we say it was excluded because it was built after 1965. How does that make sense? That seems to be would seemingly be contradictory, inconsistent. Why wasn't this bridge surveyed? So one indicator we can look at is the bridge type. We see this bridge is a pre-stressed concrete I-beam, and those weren't coming into use into Indiana until 1952. And that information can be found. We do have on our summary and results page, very first document, the historic context study is going to give you information about bridge technology and the history of bridges in Indiana. But so when we know that, if the main portions of the bridge, the biggest part of the bridge, its superstructure is a pre-stressed concrete I-beam, and it can't have been built in 1936 because they weren't around in Indiana in 1936. And we want to come over here and look at the reconstructed date. Okay, well then that superstructure replacement occurred in 1996. So basically we're looking at essentially a 1996 bridge. That's not old enough, so it wasn't evaluated. Another way you can get to confirmation of that for state-owned bridges, well, bridges on the state system that were built by the state, by the Highway Commission or INDOT. We're going to have more complete records on this in bias is to look at the old bridge plans. And so if we pull up the plans for this particular bridge, we can see that it's showing us here, these are the plans for that superstructure replacement in 1994. Sort of pains me to see this. We had a beautiful 7-span concrete arch structure out there. So that would have been what was dating to 1936. And it's clearly telling us, hey, we're going to use part of that substructure. The existing substructure portions are going to stay there. And so that's why that 1936 date is still in there and still carries forward with the bridge because they're reusing those portions, but it's clearly telling us we're going to remove it. Up here it's saying, yeah, it's going to become riprap now, the main arches. So it's just a confirmation of, yeah, that was rightfully excluded from the inventory because this new, primarily a new bridge went in at this time, but we did reuse part of it, so that's why this date is there. So I just wanted to walk through that a little bit. That's also in an explanation, walkthrough of that is also in the user manual, but it is a common enough question over the years. I just wanted to go through that and people can kind of maybe make those deductions and get at that information better now because the database is out there for you to look at these records and kind of see what's going on there. But again, if anybody ever has any questions about that, still just let me know and I'll happy to take a look at it and confirm. So I think that's primarily everything I wanted to hit on, the various features and walking through the different tabs, kind of highlighting it. I mean, a lot of it's kind of pretty intuitive, you know, and we do have the user manual out there that has lots of screenshots so you can kind of walk through or reference back if you have questions about different parts. I will stop sharing the screen and we'll see if anyone has any questions about any of that information.
Hey, Mary, we do have one question in the chat. To maybe you could offer some clarification on the difference between select and non-select.
Okay, not understanding the classification of select and non-select for a bridge. Can you briefly summarize the meaning? Thanks. Okay, sure. I was throwing out a lot of terminology there without kind of giving the background and the preface of our Historic Bridges Programmatic Agreement. So I apologize for some of you who might be newer to that. On our summary and results page, or connected to there, you're going to find our Historic Bridges Programmatic Agreement, which is a document we signed in 2006, which is like a management plan for historic bridges in Indiana. And it was after years of consultation and discussion between INDOT and the Federal Highway Administration, our State Historic Preservation Office, local preservation, regional preservation groups, and the engineering community to say we want a way to prioritize our bridges for the ones that are historic. Let's focus on the ones that really should have our best efforts for being preserved. And let's recognize when some of them just aren't preservable, maybe they're such bad condition. Yeah, it might be historic, but it's just long term. They're not going to be good candidates for maintaining them over time. How do we filter through those and sort through those? So the groups that were working on that programmatic agreement came up with the terms select and non-select. And so select being the very best examples, very significant examples throughout the state. And we do see them as being able to preserve them over the long term. They're great examples. They should be able to be rehabilitated and we continue using them over time. For the non-select bridges, maybe they're not the best examples of a historic type. They are considered historic. We recognize they have some significance, but maybe just not the highest significance. Or perhaps they just aren't in very good condition and it's just not going to be cost effective. It's just not going to be realistic for us to preserve them over time. So it was just a way that we were filtering those historic bridges to set priorities for what we wanted to preserve. And so select being the ones we have to preserve, we need to preserve, and then the non-select being, well, maybe not, take a closer look at those, but long-term, maybe they're not the best for preservation. And also in our programmatic agreement, it states that Federal Highway will not use Federal Highway funds for the demolition of a select bridge. So if we have a federal aid, Federal Highway project for a select bridge, it needs to be preserved in some manner. Okay, so we have a question here. Which bridges would not be included in this historic bridge information? So like I said, there's a lot of records in here. I'm sorry, I didn't pull up one. I guess I should have maybe pulled up one so you could just see when it said it was not historic. There were like around 18,000 records. That was the basis of it. Starting off the inventory, they pulled that information from inspection reports at that point in time about 15 years ago. Then they filtered through to see which ones are the pool that we do need to evaluate. They excluded all those ones for the various reasons listed. And it was, I forget, like 6,500 or so. And so then for about 6,500 or so bridges, there should be on that National Register tab at the bottom, either this is eligible or it's not eligible. And we just kept all that information in there. I'm a historian, so I want to keep that info over time. I think it's important to record what we did and see what we did and see our reasonings. So even all the ones that were determined non-historic, analyzed and we said it's not historic, they're in there. And that reasoning is there. And even the ones that we didn't evaluate. So the ones that were, built in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, whatever, they're still in there too. So what's not in there basically is anything primarily built in the past 15 years because it would be a new bridge You're going to find it in bias because it's being inspected now, but it wasn't there 15 years ago when we started this inventory, so it's not going to be in there. And we're not adding it in because it doesn't seem like we really need to do that. We wouldn't be looking at historic potential for those for quite some time, so we're not adding it in. So that's pretty much what's not going to be then in there is what's been built in the past 15 or so years. All right, so have any other questions about historic bridges? If not, then we might move on over to our other kind of miscellaneous topics we had for today. If anybody has any questions as you're accessing it and trying to get on there, just feel free to let me know. Always happy to help out. I will say for non-business users, so there are different approvals that have to happen when you request access to the database. So for everybody in the consultant community, it's probably, you would know that routine from accessing other applications that you have to get approvals through your own organization first, and then it comes to INDOT. For all the non-business users, so like consulting parties, for example, it has this extra security approval step, and the person doing those approvals is probably going to do them about once a week. So if you've signed up for it and it's been like over a week or so and you still haven't gotten access to it, I'll try to monitor that and check that a little bit too, just to make sure we're keeping those flowing. But if you are finding, hey, I applied for this application 2 weeks ago and I haven't heard anything, just let me know and I'll look into that for you. But it looks like the chat doesn't have anything else. So Patrick, if we want to go on to other topics, we can switch over to that now.
All
Thank
right.
you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. That was great. Thanks for walking through that. That helped me also. Yeah, so yeah, we appreciate Mary's time. She's put in a lot of effort working to get that database out. So, and it's going to be a great tool for everybody. Moving on, we're, I think you probably know that we've had some staff changes in Cultural Resources Office in the last month or so. So Anthony Ross has now moved over to NEPA in the team lead position in the NEPA group. And we've also welcomed somebody, and that is Kaylee Bloom, who's our new archaeologist. Kaylee, if you are on, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey everyone, my name's Kaylee. I'm super excited to be here with INDOT. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a University of Indianapolis graduate. I went there for both undergrad and grad. I graduated with my bachelor's in archaeology in 2019, and I just finished my master's last summer. I'm a bioarchaeologist primarily, so that's what I focused on in grad school was bioarch. I'm originally a northeastern Indiana native. I'm from Angola. It's like an hour north of Fort Wayne. I've been living in Indy for almost 7 years now. As of August, it will be 7 years. I recently adopted a rabbit a few weeks ago. Her name is Honey. Hi, Dave. Her name is Honey. I love grunge music. Some of my favorite bands are Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, and Soundgarden. Just some of my hobbies. I'm a normal person outside of archaeology. Some of my hobbies are I like to go hiking, go antiquing, go into museums. I'm a weightlifter. I love also going to breweries. So prior to coming to INDOT, I was their intern back in summer 2019. And then after that, I interned with Green 3, now SJCA. Right after that. And just coming out of that, I worked with a bunch of different companies. I see a lot of familiar faces or names in the chat. So I've been with Graham Pape, CRA, Cardno, and then as my most recent project, I was working with Wood down in Gallatin, Tennessee at a cemetery relocation project. And that lasted for about 5 months. And that I just finished that back in mid-March. Other states I've worked in, Indiana is primarily like where I've worked. Ohio, Illinois, Kentucky, Virginia, and Oklahoma. Just some of my archaeological interest. I love historic cemeteries and historic glass. I like learning about the interurban and pre-prohibition brewing industry. With my biowork stuff, my primary focus is paleoanthropology, specifically Neanderthals. For my master's thesis, I looked at Neanderthal molars, dental microwear. So I'm also a dental anthropologist, and mortuary practices that's basically the gist of everything I'm interested in. And so, yeah, again, I'm super excited to be with INDOT, and I'm excited to see where, hi Karen, where my career takes me. So happy
Thanks,
to see
Kaylee.
everyone.
Thanks, Kaylee. Yeah, we're excited you're here at INDOT. And I do want to, we appreciate, and thanks for sharing. That was awesome. I do want to say one thing. I want to back up about Anthony. I don't think, I did want to give him a lot of, really give him his due credit for all his work that he's did in cultural resources and for helping to establish the virtual chats. So we'll miss him in cultural resources, but he's still there in environmental services. So we will still work with Anthony. So, but I do want to give him a lot of credit for helping getting this kicked off several years ago. So, moving on. So just yesterday, which seems like a couple weeks ago by now, but was it yesterday? It was this week. We sent out a listserv letting folks know that we have a updated minor projects PA submittal form. So what the submittal form, we call it the submittal and assessment form, and how this works that is a little different than what we're doing now. We did up until we released this, is that both the consultants and INDOT are going to work from the same form. So the way it used to work, you would, if you're a district or consultant and you were submitting a minor projects PA for our review, you would have the checklist, the information. We would take it, cut it and paste it into our own determination form. That can be cumbersome, and especially as as many of you know, we get a lot of project changes once we made the determination. So we're trying to find a balance there where we want to capture what is changing, but also make that manageable from a time perspective. That can eat up a lot of time for all of us. And so the way this submittal form works, the applicant will fill out part of the form, and with pretty much the same type of information you would have before. We did tweak some things to get more information concerning the right-of-way and different aspects. But once you submit that to us, we will actually fill out our part on that same form. And then we will convert that to PDF and return it to the applicant. And so the way that this works the best is fill out the form, post it on ProjectWise, send us the submittal, the email template, and we'll do it the same we've always done it in terms of our review. But we will return that form to you. The one thing that we want to let you know too is please submit that to us as a Word document, because we are going to work on that document through Word. When we finalize it and approve it and sign off on it, we'll bring that back to you as a PDF. But for now, when you're submitting it, it should be in Word. And also the way the form will work, there's flexibility in manipulating the spacing, so you can write the project description as you need. You can shift something, make things as big as you need to fit in your text and your information. So no worries there. And so that's really it in a nutshell. I'm sure as we start seeing more of these, we'll get more questions. We'll get, people will notice something that doesn't work quite as well as it should, or there's some confusion. And so that's something, we can address. And once we start using these a little bit more, we'll pick up on some of those nuances and any tweaks we need to make. Does anybody have any questions about that? In the meantime? Oh, okay. So Anne, yeah. So should maps be submitted as a separate PDF or included in the Word document? Yeah, separate. Yeah, you can just attach a. You can have like a PDF file. You know that we have. Yeah, that no use messing with trying to get that into a Word document. And Alyssa?
Hey, Patrick. Can
Hey.
everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I am actually working on an MPPA right now,
Okay.
and I had a question about the right-of-way mapping. How or what kind of ideas do you guys have of how that is supposed to look? And I might have more questions. We can do that later or now.
Yeah, that might be maybe too specific for what we can address right now. Though that, it sounds like if you have any questions, you can feel free to, once you're submitting this, you can give it your best shot on there and submit it to, what you have, the information you have. We understand that sometimes things are in flux. You might be expecting it. Feel free to tell us that there might be a situation, so let us know that and we'll figure that out. But feel free, if you have a very specific question on that, to reach out to the team leads. And
Okay, that sounds good.
but feel free, it's okay, to ask questions as you move through these submissions.
Okay.
And especially, and we do understand that, there's nuances and there's always something a little different about each project. So
Definitely. Thank you.
are there any other questions about the MPPA? I don't see any other hands raised. Okay, moving on. So for several months now, we've been using ProjectWise for consultants to submit project submittals, and we hope people like that, or see that as a bit of a streamlining tool to get that to us and us to get stuff back to you. So then we're not dealing with third-party sites or FTP sites that sometimes can be wonky. And so, we hope everybody is finding ProjectWise easy to use. One thing we want to point out about the ProjectWise is that consultants do have a folder. You can make your own folder. So we see some of the best practices we see, when we submit things back to consultants, or see when we get something from a consultant's folder, is that the consultants actually make their own subfolders it could be historic property report, archaeology report, effects report, 811. So you feel free to use your folders to help you organize your folder, your project documents. And so, you can do that, and that's very helpful. The other thing that we do notice that some people aren't using the link function. So if you go in that box at the top with the folder in it, the dialog box, you can actually, when you click on a document, you can go up there and copy, and then you can paste that into your email. And we do that the same. And so that's just really a nice shortcut to get folks in, folder. Does anybody have any about ProjectWise or the Minor Projects PA forms? Oh, so Candace asks, is there a way to delete previous versions of a document in ProjectWise? The delete option is grayed out for me when I click on a doc. You should be able to delete. I'm not sure without seeing what you're seeing, but you can delete documents. I don't know if Yeah, so Sarah's saying it might be in a shared folder, which is read only for consultants. So you can take, that's a good point. So what you can do if it's in the shared folder, you can copy and paste out to your own folder. And you should be able to delete. Okay, so we have another comment. I had, yeah, they had the item not checked in. So that's another, aspect of ProjectWise. You do check in and check out documents. And so if it's not checked in, you would not have that ability to delete it. So Candace, if you look or play with that, but if you have problems, just, reach out and I can walk you through how to delete. And that's, I'll extend that to anybody who has any issues. ProjectWise is a great tool for us to use, and so we want everybody to be comfortable with it. So feel free to reach out for questions. Haley, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I was wondering about the use of ProjectWise in follow-up coordination. If we're providing some visuals to answer a question or a change in scope, do you want everything submitted to ProjectWise?
Yeah, for the most part, sure. I think that's because we're going to take that, whatever the consultant puts in ProjectWise, we're going to copy and paste out into our folders, and then that really makes that chain, that documentation trail easier to manage if we're putting everything through ProjectWise. And right, it's done for us that way. So I would speak for all of CRO. I think most of, if not all of us, prefer that, and that makes that process easier.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. Sarah?
Hey, Patrick. I was
Hey.
curious to see if you guys know, or if it's something that could be thrown out there of, for us, we use a sub-consultant for a lot of our works. Weintraub works with us. So because of how those folders get subbed in ProjectWise, it's either Structure Point has their folder and we have to submit it, and Weintraub can't see it because only consultants can see their own folders, or Weintraub does it and then we don't have access to it. So we kind of, granted, we can just move things around on our back end, but I didn't know if there's a function to where multiple consultants can get added to the same folder or share them, or if you can speak that into someone else's ear.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I can see, I recognize that yeah, we can only put it back into.
Can you see the shared folder, Sarah? Like underneath, if Weintraub has a folder and then the shared folder underneath there, when INDOT puts something back?
No,
I don't believe
no.
so. You can only, because the shared folder is a subfolder of the specific consultant's folder, and we cannot see any other consultant's folders in ProjectWise.
Even on the same project.
Correct.
Right.
Because when you don't even see you can't add things, I don't think, until you go through iTab and get your own consultant folder populated in ProjectWise first, so.
Okay.
It's not a big deal.
Right,
but it's something that we've noticed on our end that we kind of have to play now let's put our own FTP site and get it back and forth to each other. But it's fine for us, but something we've noticed. So
you're still using an FTP site internally?
Yeah.
Between the subs.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you guys do comments, then it's, hey, Linda, or hey, Sarah, can you send this to me so that we can see what's going on too? And then we go back and forth, and then someone finally submits it.
Okay. Well, I think that's something we can look into. Maybe there's a workaround, and maybe somebody will know something and tell us how that might work. But we'll see. We'll check into it.
I will say ProjectWise has been useful because I know we've had issues in the past where transferring larger documents into you guys has been an issue, or issues with you using our own share file site. So it has been nice because it seems to be smoother. At least emails are getting where they need to go and not dropping away just because of attachment size and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a fair point about, that transmittability and viewability between consultants working on the same project. So we'll see if there's a workaround to that, and we'll touch base again on that. thanks for bringing that up. Do we have any further comments or questions or anything else anybody wants to bring up before we get out of here? And as you're thinking about that, feel free to let us know if you have any topics for future virtual chats. So we're always open to suggestions, and we want to provide content that's useful to everybody. And again, this is being recorded. This will go up on our YouTube channel in a few weeks, and so feel free to go back or share as appropriate. And I'm just going to do a quick check. I don't see any more questions or comments. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thanks, Mary. And everybody take care, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.